Okay. Alrighty, guys. Sorry about the interruption. I had some stuff to take care of. Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah. So, new Zen CPUs coming out next year. I think they're slated to begin next year. Yeah. Slated to begin next year. They're talking about Zen 2 here, which is actually going to give Intel the run for its money, as we just talked about. Let's see what else is going on here. An Instinct. Epic CPUs are data center CPUs, basically for servers. Doesn't really apply to gaming. It sounds like the Radeon Instinct, which is their next GPU, is actually made for this is going to be a data center GPU made for like rendering and stuff, which isn't very useful for mining and not very useful for gaming. Compete with Tesla is NVIDIA's workstation GPU. PCIe 4.0, which really doesn't matter that much. It's not really, maybe it's a big deal for render farms or something, where they're going to transfer a lot of data. They talk about PCIe 4.0. The whole reason it's PCIe 4.0 hasn't been pushed is because there's like no actual use for it, besides maybe NVMe SSDs. So M2 drives, really fast hard drives, but even then, like there's no demand for those. Almost no demand for those in consumer space. It's mainly for like databases and such. Just care completely about power efficiency. Don't live in a modern world. Oh, there's actually more. cores and 128 threads. That's for data centers. Once again, that's not for desktop computers. Never buying an MSI laptop ever again. My MSI laptop's a piece of shit. Well, it's not a piece of shit. It just does not feel like the $800 or $1,000 I paid for it. Definitely does not. Dell laptops, 100%. I don't think I had a Dell laptop that just felt as bad as this laptop does. It's just easy to bend. It's easy to bend. It feels like it'd break if you drop it. The screen looks like it'd easily crack on it if you don't take care of it. Stuff like that. Not a fan. Alright, so tonight we're going to cover BlizzCon. Originally we're going to cover BlizzCon. Some of the things, there's new trailers that came out for BlizzCon. And then in addition to that, Overwatch stuff, including Catherine. We're going to play Overwatch tonight, though. So I was wrong yesterday. I thought that the AK-47 just wouldn't get used compared to the silenced assault rifle, because the silenced assault rifle is so good in Fortnite. And I was mistaken. The AK is basically just a sniper rifle. It's a fucking sniper rifle. Like, you don't need to wait for the one-shot accuracy for the crosshair to come together on it. It just does it like a gun normally should if it's designed that way. And basically it's just really fucking good. You can just tap really easily with it. Much like other games. It seems like Epic is homogenizing Fortnite with other games and the way other games play out. Like they just got tired of hearing people bitch about spread and stuff, so maybe they're making a little bit more intuitive way for there just to be no spread. For some reason people will bitch about spread, but they won't wait for the one-shot accuracy bonus, which is kind of mind-boggling in and of itself. But that's the world we live in right now, so. Got a heavy sniper, a heavy shotgun, and now a heavy AR. How about a heavy SMG? Probably at the end of the stream, I'll be playing Black Ops. I have it downloaded. I bought it and I downloaded it before I started streaming. I have not played. We played Black Ops for one day of the beta, and I've not played it since, so. It never felt like they balanced the P90 and the Tommy gun properly, because they just straight up replaced the other SMGs. And they didn't really. If you have a clip size, you balance it with damage, for instance, DPS. But then they just made the Tommy gun and the P90 just do more DPS than other SMGs. So it just made the other SMGs completely inferior, which didn't really make any sense. Like there's supposed to be a trade-off, and they didn't really have a trade-off for using the Tommy gun versus the P90, for instance. Whatever reason, I don't know. And instead of balancing it, they just got rid of them. Well, P90 still exists. It's just been lobotomized, sitting there with its 40-round clip. But probably Slain. Just before that, we're going to cover. Let's see, BlizzCon. Let's see, BlizzCon synopsis. Let's see if we can see one of these. BlizzCon. Your synopsis. Yeah. BlizzCon, Diablo Immortal. I have no idea why people are hating on Diablo Immortal so much. Like they really wanted Diablo 4, even though Diablo 3 is still relatively new. Diablo 3 come out? Like 2012? And it's been constantly updated since then. Yeah, 2012. Head on the nail. And they've been constantly updating it since then, and people are ready for Diablo 4, which isn't going to really change anything, because basically Diablo 3, like, kind of the improved version of Diablo 3 is basically PoE, which is Path of Exile, simply because there's a lot more balance, like, not balance, that's the wrong word for it, a lot more ways to play the game. There's a lot more opportunity, there's a lot more options. So what would they do in Diablo 4? It's just more story, I guess. Same shit, more story, I suppose. I don't know what people expect or why they get so angry when there isn't, like, a prequel, an immediate prequel. Sequel. Prequels before, sequel. An immediate sequel. Doesn't really, it's kind of people are kind of weird. Like, the whole outcry from, is Blizzcon actually a channel? I think. So Blizzard. Take a look at their videos, and let's see. Then we might actually have to go to the individual channels to see this shit. I was hoping that they would just sum it up. Aku, let's take a peek. It would be weird if they didn't actually update, like if they're gonna. So, Warcraft 3 Reforged is basically Warcraft 3, only they're redoing it in the StarCraft 2 engine. If you just look, immediately you can tell from the gameplay that it's the StarCraft 2 engine. The StarCraft 2 engine acts really, really derpy sometimes when it comes to pathfinding. You can just tell the way the units move around. It's like the hitbox or the actual unit size is like 2 times larger than it actually is. So it looks like everything waddles around. Over the last week or so, I played a lot of HOTS. Or 2 weeks after I came back from my trip, I played a fuck ton of HOTS. And the pathfinding in that game is sometimes a lot to be desired. Like, you'll click one area, and then your character will turn around and go in the opposite direction. There are a lot of pathfinding bugs in HOTS, or specifically in the StarCraft engine. And it really kind of shows up when you start clicking a lot and you start moving really fast. I've like had the game just derp out where it won't register key presses, or your character will just go the wrong direction. And I've turned off, for instance, mapping, which could be one of those things where you click on the minimap and your character will go route some way. But sometimes it just routes a completely random direction, and it doesn't even make sense. And you click immediately in the same spot, and then it'll just go back to the original way it was routing in the first place. It's like some sort of weird error. But anyways, I don't know what people were expecting with Warcraft 3 Reforged, but Warcraft 3 Reforged is basically just Warcraft 3 in the StarCraft engine, which is smart by Blizzard because they have an actually very robust engine, which is the StarCraft 2 engine. Robust engine to use for something like an RTS, and they just need to apply, which is why HOTS is never going to die, because there's basically no production cost to it, besides making new models and just keeping up with making new artwork and stuff. Basically, it just makes some money, which is why they're never going to get rid of it, because basically, as long as they keep StarCraft 2 around, they just use the same engine. And for Warcraft 3 Reforged, once again, they're using the same engine for it. So we're basically going to end up with basically Warcraft 3, StarCraft. And I don't know why people wanted Warcraft 4 anyways, because Warcraft 4 is just what StarCraft 2 is. It's basically StarCraft 2 is Warcraft 4. But I guess that's people want different flavors of the same ice cream, so. Pose. Let's do craft. There's new cinematics for WoW we're going to look at, even though I'm not playing WoW right now. Craft 3 Reforged. Watch some videos, guys. So this is based off the old Legion. The Burning Legion expansion pack for Warcraft 3. Where this guy rains fire. This is a remake of the original.
We never paid any heed to.
Remake of the original trailer. Forged. Yeah, official. How is there not an official channel? Like, if... What the fuck, Blizzard? Sometimes, just Blizzard... Do they just not have a Warcraft channel? Like, do they not own the Warcraft channel? There you go, cinematic trailer. But...
We never paid any heed to the ancient prophecies. Like fools, we clung to the old hatreds. And fought as we had for generations. Until the day the sky rained fire, and the new enemy came among us. We stand now upon the brink of destruction, for the reign of chaos has come at last.
The cinematic team that did this was not nearly as good as the original. They fucked up the animations quite a bit. I'm not saying that to be overly biased or nostalgic. Basing that off nostalgia. They just inferior. So something to look. The fucking orc looks fucking retarded when he's screaming at this other guy. He looks like he does like a Hulk roar at him, where his face is just like. But if you look at the original orc from, it's like his mouth doesn't open up wide enough or something. It's really weird, or it's like kind of jarred to the side. Very weird. If you look at the original, I remember vividly the original gameplay trailer because that's one of my things from my childhood right there. From my childhood, I'm fucking 34. Holy shit. Orc just looks fucking retarded. Whoever made this orc and the animation for the orc is just fucking stupid. I mean, the video itself doesn't look that horrible. And then also with the fucking, with Infernal. Once again, they fucked up the roar on the Infernal. He doesn't bow deep enough, and he doesn't look as aggressive. He just like stands there and he goes like look at this. Like he barely moves his torso down. If you can imagine someone bellowing like a dragon, for instance, you know, where you just have a deep breath and then you just really let it loose. He's just like his head's like stuck there. In the original trailer, the guy probably comes down a little bit further and sticks his hand out, more like a T-Rex sort of thing going on there. And this just looks fucking stupid. And then also the fingers here, they messed that up. It's like, so this right here, in the original video, they timed with kind of the dying breath of this guy, also timed with the dialogue. And while it might seem like a small little detail that doesn't really matter, it makes a huge difference when you're looking at the overall video itself. And maybe they did this because they're redoing it and they're like, wow, we'll put our own spin on it. Artists love doing that shit where they just kind of redo little things in it just to make it their own because, I mean, it's pride, right? In this case, they fucked this up too. And it's actually kind of disappointing when I first saw this trailer. I watched it on a stream and I thought it was actually really disappointing because the original... even though the graphics are better in this trailer, the graphics are hands down better in this trailer, it doesn't actually have the same flair the old trailer did as far as the animations go. And that makes a huge difference. Animations, even though graphics have improved dramatically over the last, fucking 2 decades since this game came out, right? Graphics have improved dramatically, especially for CG. Animations are still something that is very, very particular, much like sound and making good sounds and sound in engines. In, like, you know, we talk about Fortnite, the actual making of sounds and like animations are like, it's like puppetry. It's like a guy just making a marionette dance in strings. That's basically what it comes down to. And if the puppeteer is not very good, if the animator isn't very good, it ends up with really kind of clunky and blocky looking animations, or it doesn't convey the right purpose to the person watching it. So even though you can have something like a marionette, which is like a doll, if you've ever seen marionette plays, obviously, you know, kind of low in entertainment nowadays, but back in the day, if you have a really good puppeteer that's really good at controlling it, it can make it seem really lifelike. And other times, even though the technology, how it's actually portrayed to people hasn't really changed, you know, there's stopgap in. What the fuck is it called again? Where they put the balls on people. It doesn't exit that for some reason. Animation, video games, stop motion. No, stop motion is like the Play-Doh. That's not right. Mocap. Yeah, mocap. So basically they take someone, they draw dots on them, or they put balls on them, and basically the person can move around. It gives very lifelike appearances because, you know, it's basically off someone's real body. It's capturing their body, but that can do other things, which makes if everything's not mocapped, it looks other things look inferior. You can't do the same things you can in video games because it's fantasy, and sometimes you want to use, you know, your creative freedom to make things look more lifelike, make things look more, they're not lifelike, more animated, where you just kind of overdo, you make the animation a little bit over the top because you want to make it seem kind of weird. Or people generally, you know, they teleprompt more when they're talking or something, where they have their hands going back and forth, even though people generally, you know, most people don't really do that in real life. Maybe they'll move a drink around or something, but for the most part, they don't really do stuff like that. One of the things I don't like about these glasses, they definitely increase my eye fatigue, which makes me more tired faster. But anyways, this is Warcraft 3. There's a gameplay trailer too. This is actually kind of shitty that we have to dig this stuff out. This is Blizzard. You shouldn't need to dig this shit out of. There it is. Channel is this on Warcraft 3. 12,000 subscribers. They just made their channel. Okay. They have the gameplay footage too. Gameplay trailer. As you can see here, it basically just looks like StarCraft, Warcraft, basically is what it is. StarCraft 2 Warcraft. Honestly, like, people, I was watching other streams and people were freaking out about how good this looks. This honestly does not look that much better because of the cartoon style. There's like reflections and stuff now besides the cartoon style. They redid the heroes, so these look different, but the cartoon style kind of makes everything look very similar. Obviously, higher definition models, and they completely redid the heroes. But if you just look at like the units moving around on the ground, it's very similar. $4K, and the graphics look very similar because they're still cartoony. Besides the heroes, they definitely updated the models, as you can see in the video.
We're too late. This entire city must be purged. This entire
Also, his hair is a fucking giant. Surprising that they don't even have any sort of CG on his hair, or not CG, physics on his hair.
city must be purged.
Literally a stick. It's a hair stick. Prolific from the original game. Once again, probably still the best arc, the best expansion pack from World of Warcraft was obviously Frozen Throne. And that's gone. And Arthas, they definitely have a lot of opportunity where they could remake Arthas and actually bring people back to Warcraft as just from the storyline, but they still don't do it, and they fuck up the storyline. There's only a handful of characters that are actually left in the game that are actually, like, original. They feel original, and they feel actually like they have plot armor, which is like Jaina, Sylvanas. I mean, there's characters they introduced with, like, new races that they brought in, like, what's the wolf guy's name? I don't even remember. But there's like a handful of just a very small amount of original characters still in Warcraft, and they're cutting them out. Sylvanas obviously going to die in some way, shape, or form. I've talked about that totally should hit it off with Anduin, and Anduin, you know, they should have, they totally need to have an affair. That would totally be a thing. Purge, basically what Arthas mindfucked both Sylvanas and Jaina would totally be a great Lich King. Definitely be a great Lich King, but Sylvanas and Anduin, definitely, like, Anduin could totally cleanse her or something, because so he turned, Arthas turned her into a Banshee. Which isn't that she's dead, it's just that she's been cursed, so. There's a lot of room there where they could actually do things better, but they aren't going to. It's just, what's the current line? We're gonna get to, let's just go to, World of Warcraft then. Watch the new trailer. Sarfang. The new trailer that just came out. They have there's a lot of tournaments that they had going on during BlizzCon. Lost Honor. Great video. Great cinematic team still.
That's the last of the soldiers. We'll be calling up farmers next.
When this war began, I thought we were fighting for peace. But we're just fighting.
You're doing all you can to stop her, Your Majesty.
At Lordaeron, you had the chance to take my life. Maybe even end the war. Why didn't you kill me?
Could kill you now.
I spared you because I believed you have honor. Was I wrong? Do you want more innocents to suffer? The Horde...
I have given everything for the Horde! Bled for it, killed for it, and Sylvanas is destroying it. She will destroy everything. What I want is my Horde back.
Sarfang, tell me why you spared my life.
I hoped you would stop her.
I can't.
Yeah, really well done work.
Not alone.
Too bad he doesn't just fucking suck it up and go and cleanse her. And then have a Jesus baby with her to defeat Jaina, because Jaina's going to turn into Lich King because she's becoming power hungry. She'd be a great. I mean, everyone's about female antagonists and protagonists nowadays. So, if Jaina was the next huge, I mean, she has plot armor too. She's she's an OG character, and she could definitely go seek. It wouldn't be far fetched to see Jaina actually seeking power and going after the crown. What's it called? The Forbidden Crown. Basically, the crown that's on Bovarus or whatever his name is. The guy that basically had to be the next Lich King and is entombed in ice. But still apparently alive. And I'm sure he's just ready to retire from the fact that he's been the Lich King for the last 10 years. Definitely a lot of room for there actually to be plot development that matters. And Blizzard doesn't do it. Instead, Saurfang is going to go and basically save the Horde, I guess. But it would definitely, if Jaina and or not Jaina, Anduin isn't. He's Varian is still probably what a lot of people consider to be the king, even though Anduin's the king of. I'm not big into lore with Warcraft, even though Anduin's generally considered. He is the king nowadays. He's definitely doesn't have the feel of Varian used to have, and even then, like I mentioned, the original characters that still have this kind of seed of what people actually care about in the game are disappearing, and then they go and waste characters. Like they got rid of Arthas's Frostmourne was turned into apparently DK weapons, or made off Frostmourne was reforged and given to the Death Knights, which are classes in World of Warcraft. Like they just use actual good meaningful lore for stupid shit, and then like they just let opportunities just kind of pass them up. Like if Anduin cleanse, because he can't actually kill Sylvanas, he's not like he doesn't have the feel. Like if Jaina killed Sylvanas, that would actually it'd feel like something that could happen. But Anduin's not he doesn't even feel like the king yet. So like just having him go and just kill a random character, like you kind of lose meaning in the actual in the universe, in the lore itself, making people care about characters. If you just kill them off before people get a chance to either relate to them or feel for the characters with a new character that basically no one gives a shit about, that's like the worst possible thing. You can just make this like god entity come out of the sky and drop a sword in the middle of the fucking world, and then you can't actually fucking see it. I don't like the opening to BFA was the stupidest shit I've ever seen. Just because there's basically no real world impact whatsoever from the event. Like you see someone jab a sword into a planet, and then there's just no sword in the planet, and you're like, that doesn't quite make sense, sort of thing. But anyways, Anduin could totally save Sylvanas and then reunite the Horde with the Alliance to fight the new Frost King, which is Jaina. I've talked about it a couple different times on stream and on the social medias in case it ever happens, so I can say I said that way back when, because this is a really good idea. Anduin, I think, is a priest or a paladin. I'm not sure which he is. He's a priest or a paladin. Either way, something that could possibly cleanse basically the Banshee from Sylvanas and save her. Your car will never rust again for $10. Oh yeah?
We've got a small piece. If you slide it in slowly, you'll feel any obstructions. You can move it around to get it past there. Now listen, we're at the bottom. Mineral oil, just so I could share with you, and I'm gonna actually do the transmission fluid as well. Petroleum jelly, you just gotta keep it warm when you put it in. That's it. Put the nozzle on top, and you just squeeze it. Okay, and why we put the tape on is so we can let it set and soak in there before it drains out. We want it to really get down into this area here of the door. And it's in there.
The thing about auto repairs is it takes fucking forever.
Let's add some red transmission fluid to it for the front of it. Now you can use your syringe.
Even if stuff's cheap to do, it takes a lot of time, and that's if you know what you're doing.
Your tube, squeeze it down in, and you're like a miniature surgeon. Done. right, now you can see the transmission fluids mixing in there. All right, use your super duper sweet Project Cars air nozzle and blow that stuff out of there. Because that's exactly what we're going to do, and then we're going to here. The camera up and you'll see it start coming out of there into the oil pan. Okay, now you can see the oil dripping on the far right side of the pan.
So they're just coating the inside with oil.
Mineral oil. Once again, 2 to 3 years from now, and you'll never have to worry about rust. Because what's one of the biggest? The tube right here, inside there, filled it up. Now those issues are gone, and keep the leaves cleaned out of it. This is draining out. We're just going to let it continue to drain out. All right, I tilted the car up. You can see it's really draining out of there good. And it's puddled up down at that end. And that's what we want. But like I said, if you don't want to mess with the transmission fluid, you don't have to. You can use the mineral oil or the Vaseline. Just keep the petroleum jelly Vaseline warm when you add it in.
Yeah, my car's rusty. I live in Wisconsin. It's kind of... Unfortunately, that's just the downside of living in Wisconsin is the winters. And my car, apparently, even though it's from Sweden, apparently has not been protected very well against rust. Because there's going to be salt on the roads and snow and water, and then it just gets up inside everything. And I actually need to take a wire wheel to my car, to my fenders, because I need to use some stop rust on it, or I left it last year and it just fucking spread. Because I didn't want to actually take a wire wheel to my car, the paint job on it, because in order to actually use like a rust inhibitor or rust stopper, a rust converter is what it's called, where it'll actually chemically change the rust. It actually exists. It's not snake oil. It'll actually chemically change the rust from one type to it removes an element from it. It's like not water. It removes something specifically from rust. I have a can of it sitting over there on my table. I think the Rust-Oleum makes it. Tons of companies make it. But it actually converts rust. It'll turn it into like a metal instead of being... It removes an atom from the chain or something like that, from the chemical compound, and then turns it into a different type of basically metal where it won't rust anymore. And it just becomes immune to rust basically, but it looks like shit. So I didn't want to do it because it was going to make everything look bad, and I didn't, and it just made everything fucking worse. So before winter happens here, before things start snowing, and before I drive my car around in the snow, I have to do this. I'm going to have to take a wire wheel, because you have to rough up the edges, you have to remove excess paint and, uptell the actual metal, and then you're going to have to spray over the rust and the metal. So if you just spray the rust on the surface layer and the chips, it's just gone, and then your coating's gone. So unfortunately, I can't just spray it. I could, and it'd probably actually be better than leaving it, but like if I don't, it's just going to get worse. Honestly, I wanted to have it professionally done, but that's not going to happen because it costs too much. On small rust spots, it's better to use it on small rust spots, and once it gets bigger, it's like cancer. It gets bigger and bigger. Rust is cancer at cars on metal. It spreads. It'll just spread. So if you mix salt in with it or some sort of electrolysis, actually I think electrolysis is used for removing rust. Thinking about that now, but if you mix salt in with it or more water, it just spreads. It keeps spreading. It's like cancer. It'll keep growing, like a cavity in your teeth. It'll just keep getting bigger and bigger. You have to basically, you have to paint over the actual rust and remove any chips that are just going to fly off, that'll just remove with the paint. Like, for instance, here. You have to buff this up, or rough this up so there's actually bare metal exposed here. So when you paint over the top of this, it'll actually have something where there's an end to the rust and actual metal that'll actually seal against. You can't just paint over the top of the rust. And mine comes in black, and luckily my car is black, but if you have like a red car or something, you're just going, like, I think maybe you can get it in, no, you can't, because it actually, like, the metal itself turns a specific color. Like, you'd have to paint it after you do it, but me specifically, it turns like a gray color. It's like carbon. It turns like a carbon color. So like graphite, that's what I was looking for. It turns like a graphite color for me, so I probably don't need to paint it, but otherwise you just go over the top of it with something that matches. You get a can of paint that matches your actual car over the top of it. It's not going to look good. There's actual body kits that you can actually repair stuff, but like I don't want to actually spend time doing that. You can spend a lot of time working on a car. I didn't want to do that, and I don't really trust anyone to do it, so you know, what am I going to do? It's basically it's basically like sealing. You have to seal your car. You have to take care of it or it's just going to spread. And you can use it on little dots. It's better if you use it when it's small. Once it spreads, and once it gets like this, where there ends up being holes, then the water gets inside here and then splashes on the back of the actual metal inside, and then it'll keep bubbling. It'll bubble up and get the paint. It'll make the paint look worse and everything. It'll bubble up against the backside, and then it just makes everything look worse. So, yeah, salt does a number on cars. And actually, one of the people I talked to when I was getting estimate for my car, basically wouldn't give me an estimate because he's like, oh, you're living in Wisconsin, that's just what's going to happen around here. I'm like, yeah, I fucking know that. I want an estimate for a car repair. I don't give a shit about what you think about winters in Wisconsin because I know about winters in Wisconsin. I live in fucking Wisconsin. No fucking shit, you know? And he's like, oh, winters in Wisconsin are horrible. The salt on the roads just raises hell with the paint. And I'm like, yeah, it does. Yeah, I know that already. Yeah, you are 100% correct. So, World of Warcraft trailer, Lost Honor, very good. Love it. Heir of Darkshore, I have not seen this. Let's take a peek what this is.
All of it? The entire shipment, down to the last sack of grain. This one's the only survivor.
Oh, I've seen this. Still good.
Once only. Do not take me yet. What happened? We were bringing supplies to the war front, just like all the other times.
Pick up the pace! We got to get these supplies to our soldiers by dawn!
What is it?
Tell her. We are coming.
Once only. Do not take me yet.
He expects us to believe this tale. No single night elf could do all that.
I know one who could. We will hold this ground for the Horde.
So it continues, even if the game itself is not actually fun to play. So like I mentioned before, Blizzard actually has a couple different levels of animation. This was like they use the in-game engine to render them, as you guys saw, compared to the actual CG. The actual CG takes a lot of time, money to make the video, as you guys saw, the Lost Honor cinematic, and then this obviously adds more lore and storytelling, but these are easier to make because it just uses the in-game engine and high poly models that actually already exist in the game engine. And then you have something lower than this, which is the in-game movies, which just have people going like this, like they don't even lip sync at all, which looks really fucking weird. They don't even lip sync, and um, sometimes they have voiceovers, and sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's just text, or sometimes they don't even do that. But generally, in game, they'll just go like, ow, 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 like that, and they'll put like words over the top of it. So these guys are they're the new faction. I forgot what they're called, unlockable new race. But basically, you're gonna be able to eventually play them in game. But they're just basically night elves. They're a different kind of night elf. Like right now, there's Lightforged Drani and Void Elves, and for the Horde, they have like High Mountain Taurens, and there's one other one that I don't remember. I think it's um Trolls, Zandari Trolls, or maybe that's something you can unlock. There's a bunch of different races they plan on unlocking throughout this expansion pack, which is kind of one of the attractive things that people were looking forward to, is just new races, which change basically absolutely nothing in the game, but they look cool. Also, how do you kill someone and make it be PG? Oh, hey, look, he just got sucked into the ground and he suffocated, but he doesn't actually kill him. PG. PG actually ruins a lot of things, even though it gives you the idea of what's going on and what's actually happening. It's still not the same as actually, like, if they could actually have this and make it more, like, brutal, like war itself, you know, like actual war, like Saving Private Ryan sort of shit, that they just can't do. You actually lose a lot. I personally think, not that distasteful gore is an answer to anything, but, like, just that's not the way people would, you know, act if there was actually a war, you know. What did I just watch? Oh, Man in the High Castle. Yeah, Man in the High Castle. Very, very fond of the series. Season 3, Man in the High Castle, very good. As I mentioned, I finished watching that a couple days ago. Very good. It's better than Season 2, and Season 1 was better than Season 2 as well. Season 3 is better than Season 1. But however, like, there's just some scenarios where there's just gore involved, and it's just part of kind of life and just part of what happens. And unfortunately, they kind of, when they do stuff to make it PG so they can get around ratings, they just, like, you kind of have your arms just shackled, even though, like, basically they just burn someone's fucking tree. They burn their fucking home, like their country, they set it on fire. You know, that kind of pisses off some people. Also, kind of an interesting thing here is how night elves are portrayed outside of World of Warcraft. In World of Warcraft, for instance, night elves are very, very slender and very tall. And these are obviously slender, but these are more voluptuous is the word I'm looking for. If, like, you look at her, she's, you know, thick is the word they'd actually go with. But thick is oftentimes used just for women that are fat. However, like, she looks like there's more to her than just being slender. Like, night elves in WoW are beanstalks. They're more like him. He's very slender. He's a lot like the actual males in World of Warcraft, where she actually has more, like, curves to her. And if you go and play Heroes of the Storm, oh, they just do a number on curves. They love their fucking curves. Like, if you take her, she's probably maybe 30% wider. Like, same model. I don't know if this is Sylvanas. I don't think this is Sylvanas. This is someone else because of the black eyes. I don't know what's going on there. But if you, like, look at the models for, like, Alexstrasza and stuff in Heroes of the Storm, which is the MOBA for Blizzard, compared to World of Warcraft, they're just worlds apart. Like, they're just completely different. They don't even look, like, besides, like, the normal, like, look to them, they're just, like, they just take the character and go, like, they're, like, twice as wide. Maybe not as twice as wide. They're, like, 50% wider, just in general. Just, like, round circumference of the character, just, like, 50% bigger compared to what they look like in World of Warcraft. And I'm not talking, like, specifically all the characters are super slender, like, compared to humans or something, but just, like, the race is super slender like that. And it just kind of looks weird when you see them portrayed in different films and different parts of Blizzard lore, and then they just kind of have their own take on what a female night elf looks like. I think that's undead. Like, there's a lot of these people that you just don't know who they are. This is, I believe, is the Undead King. Because Sylvanas used to run the Undead, right? Before she became the leader of the Horde, she was the leader of the Undead. And now this guy, I guess, is leader. Like, there's just, they don't actually convey any of this shit to you in the game. And while they do have stuff like, you know, if you play the raids and you go through the raids and you read the lore, you read the books and stuff, you'll get snippets like this. But if you're just an average WoW player that doesn't raid, like, you just miss out on so much shit. Like, they don't actually bring you up to par, and they don't actually go out of their way to help you maintain, like, the storyline. Where in Fortnite, when we're playing Fortnite and talking about Fortnite, everyone is basically involved with it. It's impossible to play the game and not be involved in the storyline, simply because the world continually changes around it. Like, Blizzard still is not... Blizzard is a monolith of old-school video game development, and they still haven't, with a lot of things like microtransactions, for instance, they haven't really caught up. Even though there's a store in World of Warcraft, for instance, it doesn't have that much stuff on it, considering it's been there for, like, 10 years. It has, like, nothing in it. Compared to, like, fucking Fortnite, Epic releases a new skin, like 2 new skins per week. It's insane. And then they don't do shit like that in World of Warcraft, so... I don't know. Just, like, they just... Like, stuff like this, if they want to do stuff like this, you actually have to... if you want to slam a sword into a... if you want to slam a sword into a planet and have it be a meaningful event that actually happens in your video game, when you have people log into the world, there's a fucking sword in the goddamn planet. Like, they can look and see it in the horizon because it's a fucking sword the size of, like, you know, 5 mountains high and wide, and it's just slammed in the planet. You know, you can actually see it, but... At no point did I actually, like, in the World of Warcraft, unless I'm mistaken, like, the opening to BFA. The opening for BFA, the opening cinematic for BFA is just absolutely just weird as shit. I don't remember what it's called. We watched all these in game. We went through basically every quest in the game before we quit World of Warcraft. I covered all this, and I don't remember which movie it actually was, but they actually show like the argument with the Titans or something. One of the Titans slamming his sword into the planet. It was a big deal, and then just it's not in the planet. And you're like, I don't know. Unless it was supposed to be like a different timeline or parallel world or something. Maybe I missed something and how they tried to actually like play it off, but I don't know where the sword is. So, you know, kind of a big deal, guys. Kind of a fucking big deal. Okay, so what else do we have? Terror Darkshore, I think we just watched this. What else was going on? We also had Overwatch. There's a few things released for Overwatch. There's Diablo Mobile, which everyone freaked out about, which I still have no idea why. Why it came as any surprise that Blizzard was gonna step foot into the mobile genre besides Hearthstone. But for some reason, everyone and their mom freaked out about Diablo Mobile. I don't really understand why. Once again, it's just like that's commonplace that companies are going to do that. It's like Diablo fans felt betrayed that they didn't get Diablo 4 or something. yeah. You know how long it takes Blizzard to make a new version of a game? Like 10 years. You know how long Diablo 3 has been out for? 6. And there's been continual updates since it came out. Relatively continual updates since it came out. And just, like, especially nowadays because the development cycle continues and keeps going on. Especially with the way they played out StarCraft 2 and Diablo, which they released expansions and they've actually offering support. Video game 2.0 not quite on the level of Fortnite, where they want to encourage you to keep playing their game. And League of Legends, MOBAs in general, where they have microtransactions and new characters that come out and stuff like that. Not quite on that level, but they still kept adding stuff, where compared to Diablo 2, you know, development just kind of, that's like old school development 1, where they just release a game, and then maybe there's an expansion, and then it's just whatever happens, you know. Maybe they'll fix it if, like, something's broken, super broken, but generally they don't touch the game after it's released. And, like, for some reason, people just, like, their minds exploded when Diablo Mobile came out. They're just like, oh my god, we can't have mobile game. You know, where's our Diablo 4? Because it's been 6 years. And there's been no updates since they released the game. It was just a money grab. Diablo 3 was just money grab. And you're just like, okay. Blizzard, I got this. I saw this. Overwatch disappointed. Ash, you know that 60 heroes are in the works? Yeah. apparently there's always been, this is one of the reasons I quit Overwatch, is because in 2017, when I was still playing Overwatch as a regular game, there was 2 new heroes over a year. In 2017, there was Orisa, I believe, and Doomfist. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Just 2 heroes. And the release cycle, so fucking slow. And it got to the point where basically people became encrusted with the game and they felt as though there shouldn't be new characters, much like with Fortnite where they just keep releasing new stuff. People are accustomed just to there being new things in the game getting fucked with. With Overwatch, they became encrusted, and on top of it, like, they became bitter and jaded and set in their ways, and they don't want things to change. They don't want to adapt. Even though they'll talk about adapting and how good players should adapt to things, they don't want to change. They don't want new things. They just want to keep doing what they're good at, much like with Fortnite. And Blizzard made a mistake. Whereas with League of Legends, with other MOBAs, they keep releasing new characters. I think League of Legends does 3 or 4 new characters per year. There's a lot of new characters per year. It's like 1 every 3 months, which is pretty good. Yeah, which is about when you're getting bored of the new character that came out. HOTS, for instance, they have a really fast release cycle for their new characters. And then Overwatch they had 2 characters in 2017. Yeah. But anyways, yeah, people were bitching about the fact that there isn't a black woman in Overwatch, and you're just like, oh god, what is wrong with people? Like, it's because Blizzard has like pampered them so much to expect the fact that every single, like, there needs to be a transgender woman in Overwatch, or a transgender guy in Overwatch now, like maybe or a queer what are they? It's actually like, you know, LGBTQ, so like someone that's kind of maybe neutral. So I'm looking for a good word for that. My politically correct gender sensors are not up right now. Non-binary. There we go. Non-binary. That's the word I was looking for. Non-binary. They need someone that's non-binary now, who doesn't adhere to any gender. And I mean, it's not that far-fetched, actually. If you talk about anime, for instance, it's not that far-fetched to actually have a guy that looks extremely feminine, but is actually male and identifies as a guy. You know, like, it's not that far-fetched. But just like people have become to feel entitled as though they should always, like, why does Overwatch not have a black woman hero in it? How does that make sense? Blizzard, what the fuck are you doing, you know? It's just like, does it matter? Does it really honestly matter that much? They have so many different, so much diversification in there. Like, it's like people feel offended because there isn't this minority that, you know, other people want. You know, like, there's fucking Zarya, which doesn't even fucking make sense. I mean, she does. She's a female bodybuilder, but, like, just, like, you have everything, and then just people feel entitled as though their little niche should be represented because it doesn't currently exist, and the game represents all niches, right? And you're just like, no, this is another thing that people just fucking outcry about. It's fucking stupid. It's like Blizzard went out of their way to offend black women or something. And you're like, yeah, that's not the way you should be taking that. But Ash, we're gonna cover that in a second. Overwatch. WoW Classic is another game that people are going to play for a month and quit, and then over the next 2 months after that, so over 3 months total, the player base will slowly trickle out. You watch people play, if you watch people play the WoW Classic streams when it was going on, it's boring as shit. There's, like, people don't, nostalgia is very powerful, and Blizzard's just basically giving gender fluid. Sure, that's another one. Not specifically binary. Gender fluid is what I was looking for. Yeah, when referring to someone that's just like a guess either gender. It's not non-binary either. Can't think of the term right now. But anyways, yeah, WoW Classic People want it. They don't know why they want it, and they're just going to stop playing it after it comes out. It's another example of people not knowing what they want. With that being said, Blizzard basically just has to redo, like, they have to just restore old assets from before the Cataclysm happened, which I'm sure they have seen on a hard drive somewhere. So basically just restoring the area, making it look stupid as shit. And then restoring the talent trees and stuff. Something they can easily make money off of. And considering, I'm pretty sure Overwatch has like maybe 20% of the population they had during Season 3 as far as the amount of people playing it. They probably, Blizzard actually probably needs it, because not a lot of their games are actually doing that hot. There's stats that were leaked for World of Warcraft, and there's 1.3 million active subs right now, which is a lot. However, that still pales in comparison to the 13 million during Wrath of the Lich King. That's like 10% of what it originally was. That's hard to compete with, and as I mentioned, Overwatch feels as though there's about 20% of the people that are originally playing just based on queue times, and sometimes they'll even put me on West Coast when I'm playing. HOTS will never be a big MOBA. HOTS will never be a big MOBA, simply because it's Heroes of the Storm. It's version 2.0 of MOBAs, and people don't want that. They want the nitty-gritty. They want to ass rape people because they don't know how to build their runes or their masteries or what items to buy, or get behind in farming on CS, I believe it's called. You know, where they're farming mobs, getting gold off of them. They get behind on CS. They want shit like that, or XP debt. They want people to fall behind and be horrible. Have a horrible existence in their game. Instead of being about skill, they want it to be about stupid hoops that you have to jump through, because they jump through them on the way up. Gender fluid usually does not mean they don't identify as a gender. It just means that they can look either gender. Maybe it is that you don't, like, you can change your gender. Gender is really fucking weird. It's actually kind of weird that people get so bent out of shape about the fact that people don't understand, like, their gender or what they identify as, because it's like so many different little niches. It's not like man and woman. They're just like men and women, man and woman, men and women. There's just so many different ones. You can't expect people to actually know what the fuck you're talking about anymore. Like, whatever people want to be. And I guess maybe that's just more important than anything, is just whatever the fuck they want. And honestly, it really doesn't matter. But anyways, Diablo Immortal. Yeah, that's Diablo Mobile. The cosplay. Hearthstone still makes a fuck ton of money. But like, all their main games have just kind of fell. Wow. She has an absolute insane body for that cosplay. That is absolutely retarded. I can only imagine what kind of diet you have to eat to look like that. That is ridiculous. That looks very close to the actual, like, Night Elf in Heroes of the Storm. Not so much in World of Warcraft, because in World of Warcraft, not only are they insanely tall, they're also very, very lanky, and she's not lanky at all. She's more curves, but that's, you get a body like that, that's pretty ridiculous. Oh, are those painted on? That actually looks like he's wearing a front piece. Maybe. There's the fat guy who was actually really good at building costumes. 2017, though. There's an Ashe cosplay, professionally done Ashe cosplay. Let's see, where are we? Overwatch, and then also moving on to Overwatch. We on Ashe now. I don't care about Hearthstone stuff. Okay, let's see. Vitor Silveria hero story. Let's take a look at the developer update. It's been a while since I saw Kaplan. This isn't from a while. This is from 2 weeks ago, so let's bear with this.
Welcome Welcome everyone to today's developer update.
Hi, Kaplan.
Super exciting news. We're talking about BlizzCon
Oh,
today.
boy.
Now, I know it's a little bit early and we're not
Yeah,
quite to
we'll
BlizzCon
get to it.
yet, but we have a very special feature coming just for BlizzCon that we want to tell you about as early as
Gameplay
possible.
slash
And that
trailer
feature
or
is called
cinematic?
the Overwatch World Cup Viewer. So the Overwatch World Cup Viewer obviously is going to be a way for you to watch the Overwatch World Cup in a
Kaplan fucking watches, or he used to watch my stream back when I played Overwatch, because there's a lot of things that I talked about, much like with Fortnite. There are things I talk about that eventually end up in the game. Back when I played Overwatch, a handful of things would make their way into the game that I'd talk about, but 100% certain that Kaplan watched my stream. Remember a couple months ago, I've talked about this when we were talking about the fall skirmishes, and I mentioned that it would actually be next gen, and I talked about this last time when we were covering, or 2 days ago, or yesterday, where we're covering Fortnite stream, where we're talking about different things that they could do in the game to actually make it better from a viewing experience. I mentioned that something like, which is from Valve TV, where you basically can log into the game and you can watch the game in real time on your PC and basically have a 3D observer where you can move around in the game and look at stuff. Obviously, they don't want you to connect to the actual game where people are playing, but they could just demo the game and then put it onto a ghost server, and then have people connect to the ghost server with however much delay they want, so people can't actually cheat off of it or whatever. But basically, they'd be able to not only watch the game, but also play in the game, ghost in the game, while they're watching watch what's going on in the game in the fall skirmishes, and have hosts talking about it while stuff is happening in front of them. And they can basically pick their own viewpoint and be part of the action because it's their game on their computer. I mentioned this before. I mentioned this a couple different times during different skirmish events, and probably a couple months ago during the fall skirmish, not the current one because I wasn't around for that, but before that, back before I left, I covered this, and I talked specifically about this as something that should be in games. And I mentioned it's more important not to Overwatch, but it's more important to a game like Fortnite, where there's so much shit happening, and it's very involved. And Overwatch, on the other hand, there's only like 12 people playing. So there's only so much that's actually going on, and actually it's a better experience just playing with commentary and such. But if you could have a phone and you could just move around in the event and actually look at it, or a scoreboard, or some sort of other supplemental material that you can look at on your phone, because everyone has a gadget that they can just use to look at scoreboards or cheat sheets or whatever. I've talked about this a couple different times. You can look at, you can load up the Twitch app, or not the Twitch app, the Epic app or the Blizzard app, and then look at events that are going on, and then look at like scores and stuff that just happens, and kill feeds. You could have a kill feed on your phone. So stuff that you wouldn't actually otherwise be able to put on the screen, like right here, like on your screen, you could actually have in your hand, and you could look through it and tailor your own, like, the viewing experience to yourself, which is actually pretty cool, which is what he's talking about right here.
in a way that you've never seen before. But let me go into some detail on.
And this has been done, as I mentioned. This happened in Tribes. There was an observer mode in Tribes where you could watch games, and Half-Life TV was something that existed for a little bit. I don't think Source had Half-Life TV. I think it was just an original Half-Life. So back before the Source engine came around, you could actually just like watch games.
How that's going to work. Prior to BlizzCon, we are going to put up a special beta version of the feature because we need to test this more than anything else. And that beta version of the Overwatch World Cup viewer will be available to you only in the Battle.net client, which unfortunately means that the beta of this will only be available for our PC players. Now, what will the Overwatch World Cup viewer enable you to do? You can watch all of the matches in real time as they're happening live from a spectator point of view, just like our professional esports observers do, which means you can move the cameras around, you can watch from first person, you can watch from third person.
I love you, Epic. You should hire me.
Cam to move around the levels and watch the exciting Overwatch World Cup matches from any view that you deem awesome. Of course, for those of you who don't have access to the Overwatch World Cup viewer, you can also watch the Overwatch
Give
World
me the
Cup
reins,
on
your
all
billion-dollar
the streams
company.
that will be normally available to you, and you can go to the Overwatch World Cup website to see exactly where those are going to be. But there's more to the Overwatch World Cup viewer than just watching the matches live.
I haven't watched Reunion yet.
One of
We
my
will watch
favorite
that.
things about
That was a McCree
the
cinematic,
viewer
isn't
and
it?
the way that it works is it also enables you to watch the replays of every match that will be played during the semifinals.
This is a big deal.
and
This adds a
finals
lot
at
to your
BlizzCon.
portfolio when you're talking about
So you
esports.
can go back and you can watch from any angle all of the exciting plays that happened. You'll also have control over things like the camera speed. So if you want to watch
Like a
know,
demo.
in a quarter time and watch it very, very slow motion to really understand how the pros were doing all of those moves, you can do that. You can also speed things up. You can jump around in the timeline. We've enabled some other features with the World Cup viewer as well, like that top-down map view where you get the little icons on each of the heroes that shows you if they're stunned, if they're casting an ability, and shows you where their health is at and their ultimate status. So you can turn that on as well. We think it's a really fun feature.
Love you, Epic.
And most of all, and a lot of you are probably wondering, well, I love Overwatch. I might not be super into esports. I want to check out World Cup, but, why is this feature interesting to me if I'm not going to watch World Cup? Well, by testing the beta version of the Overwatch World Cup viewer, it allows us to work on the technology that will one day
I think my glasses need to be up
allow
like
us to
in
bring
a couple
these
centimeters,
features to
millimeters.
all of Overwatch, both PC and
Fall down on my
console,
nose a little bit,
in
and then
not
it ruins
only an
my
esports setting, but
through
for
like
all
right
of us
here
as
instead of down here.
individuals. Can you imagine going and watching one of your own matches later, but being able to put the camera wherever you want? In that sort of
Stuff like
replay
this should have been
view? I think
this
that
should
would
have
be
happened a long
amazing.
time ago. This
So
isn't
to
just with
summarize, the
Overwatch.
Overwatch World Cup viewer
This is
kind
one of the
gives us
cool
two
things
big
about
features that we
esports
can test
is
out for
particularly
future
it's a
Overwatch
computer.
eventually. The first one is the ability to
It's a computer,
have
and you can just
up to
record
millions of people
everything. It's like having a
watch,
3D camera where you can
Overwatch
record
in a
every
live
single
setting
detail
directly
and
through the
interact
game
with the
client.
details.
And
It's
the
not something you
second
can do with normal
feature
sports.
is a replay feature that allows you to rewatch matches that have already happened. Early on, this will only be for the World Cup and will require a special version of Overwatch only available on PC. But at a later date, we're trying to use this beta to enable the
Wow, it's
technology
kind of like this got
every
rushed.
single one of our
Weird.
Overwatch players.
Weird.
So we think that's really exciting.
Weird.
Now, some other BlizzCon news that I think is important to mention.
Normally,
and this is
Blizzard has
just in
really.
terms of
So
setting
the weird thing about this
expectations.
is they have a separate client for this actual thing, which means they actually rush this to get this into for BlizzCon. And Blizzard is a company that doesn't usually rush stuff. They're like the tried and true like Valve time, where they just do things on their own clock and whenever it's ready. For them to rush something, it's really fucking rare. Very weird, huh? Weird. I'm sure no one watches my channel though.
For you all. I know that a lot of you tend to get in your mind what we've done in the past.
And even
so
if it's
you
not Kaplan
anticipate
watching,
what
it's
we're gonna do.
like we talked about with Fortnite. It's someone that either has a developer's ear, so it could be another streamer. It could be a member of a prominent streamer community that has a developer's ear, not necessarily like whispers in it, but rather they just watch their stream, or they have developers actually do watch my stream, or you have there isn't a good word for it. It's just basically community intel people that go and watch and keep a heartbeat from channels, and they'll go and watch, find good channels, and they'll pick up and write stuff down, and then they'll kind of congregate in an area that the developer team can then sift through eventually. But weird, I talked about this specifically not during the last skirmish event. It was earlier than that. It was at the end of the end of the summer skirmish event, which is when I talked about this. When I talked about rehashing how they could improve the experience for a point of view from people actually watching the game, like watching people compete in the tournament itself.
At BlizzCon this year. And I've read a lot of this on social media where you sort of predict
The moment you
what's
mention
gonna
something,
be
guys, it just
announced
gets
or
out
not
there.
announced at BlizzCon. I want to be explicitly clear that we're not announcing a new map this year at BlizzCon. So in the past, we've announced Oasis and we've announced Blizzard World. Both were announced at BlizzCon. To be honest, we felt like
Oh, yeah?
we got a little bit lost in the shuffle. Both
He
during
doesn't
the
feel that way to me. It
timing
doesn't
of
feel like someone
announcing
that's trying to sell you
BlizzCon
something.
and also the time at which we released them. They didn't have as big of an impact as we
Completely the
really
opposite of
wanted.
it. It kind of
I
feels
feel
like
a new
some people
map
might
is
actually
something
regard him
very,
as being
very special.
wishy-washy.
So we
Where he
are
doesn't know what he
definitely
thinks.
working on new map content. We know that's something that you all love and you all request often. So don't think that by us not announcing something at BlizzCon, it does not mean that
One thing that I've mentioned multiple times that won't save a game is new maps. It helps. It's kind of nice because they have something fresh. But what saves your game is new, meaningful, actual content. Like guns, classes, things that actually change the meta, change how people play your game. Even though people bitch up a storm, like with the most recent couple changes, the two biggies from Fortnite, the glider redeploy, and then also the penetration damage. Sometimes there are things in the meta that need to be changed or they need to be done in a different way, and sometimes they just, sometimes just changing things. So for the sake of keeping things fresh and having people have to approach the same problem in a different way. Good, and well, you could argue that's what glider redeploy did. Glider redeploy basically just kills an important element of the game, which is fall damage completely.
There's no
Why I'm
work
completely
going on. We're
against it,
definitely working
unless it turns
on
into an
new
actual
map
game
content.
mechanic like a
You're just not
pack.
going to have any new map content announced at BlizzCon. That does not mean that there won't be amazing announcements at BlizzCon. We think the content we have for BlizzCon is going to be awesome.
Like
and I wish I
Plant
could share it with
Plant
all
Side
of
2
you
development team
right
spent so
now.
much time on
But you'll have to
Hassan.
wait till early
I remember
November.
that. It was like it
Make
kept
sure
getting
to
pushed
tune
back,
in.
and they kept
Now,
working
just
on
a
it,
couple
working on it,
other
working on it. I mean,
housekeeping
obviously as
notes on what's going
mappers,
on in Overwatch
they
right
had like
now.
because the team was
We
so
are
small, they had
making
like
some
coders working on it and stuff. They kept pushing it back, and they thought it was going to save their game, and like it didn't change anything because that wasn't what was wrong with the game. If you have good, solid gameplay, that means a bunch. That means a fuck ton. Actually fixing meaningful things and adding meaningful things to your game means a fuck ton compared to just adding like a map which just changes where you're fighting. Same shit, different different look, different color. Same shit, different color.
Balance changes. The balance changes are for what we call patch 1.30. That patch is going to, in essence, I'm not going to go into all the details, but expect buffs for Roadhog, Reaper, Symmetra, and Mercy. And I know that both Roadhog and Mercy are discussed probably more than some of the other heroes. Mercy will be getting a buff specifically to Valkyrie that we're experimenting with, and we think should be pretty awesome for her and be a welcome change to the hero. And with Roadhog, there's a lot going on. We want to improve how the hook feels for Roadhog and also work on some of the shotgun consistency. There will be more details coming out. I know you probably have a lot of questions hearing that, but we will be releasing detailed patch notes on what those changes are. And as always, we'll include developer comments to explain our
Well, that's his
point of
thing.
view
He's
of
like a
why we're
PR
making
voice.
changes.
He's like a lead
Whether or
developer,
not
but
the
he's also
changes will
basically
make
the
it
voice
all
of the
way to
community.
live is
Fortnite
yet to
doesn't
be
have
seen.
anyone like this.
Of course, we'll be monitoring.
Probably the
both
most
PTR
prominent
feedback and
person
playing
is
on
Zeke.
the PTR ourselves to see if those changes are
Because
good or not.
he's had so much camera
Anyway,
time.
thanks for
And every
hearing
time they
us
do a
out.
new developer
Really hope
update,
as
they don't.
many of you
They
possible
don't. He actually
help us-
explains stuff. I've talked about this a couple different times where they do the Fortnite game updates, state of development, where they have someone talk. Basically, all they do is read off a bullet point list. When Kaplan talks about stuff, it actually he actually explains things and goes over it. It's not like he's just reading off a bullet list. Maybe like it's a different skill set, being able to actually talk in public in front of people, and explain things, and actually. It's not just something where I guess Kaplan has a lot of say over what's happening too, so he can actually talk from a point of authority. Whereas if someone from I don't know how it works at Fortnite or at Epic with Fortnite, but it might be the developers that actually talk in their little updates, their little YouTube updates, might not actually have a prominent voice or an assertive voice. So maybe they don't have a figure like Kaplan in Fortnite, which is why they don't have a Kaplan. But as far as this is like Gaben is for Valve. As far as like Overwatch goes, this is like dad. Like people just refer to Kaplan as dad,
us to test the Overwatch World Cup viewer. We've been working very hard on it, and it's very
For
promising
better or worse,
technology
because
for
sometimes
the
you just
future of
blame people like
Overwatch
that, and other
the
times you just
future of cool features to come. Thanks
sometimes
for
he's given a little
everything,
bit
and
too
we
much
hope you
power
enjoy
simply
BlizzCon
because
as
he has a
much
lot of
as we're going to.
camera time. Community knows him. Okay, done. There's an introduction for Lucia O's Kellogg's cereal. I'm sure. I don't know why that didn't happen. Overwatch is doing a lot of sellout stuff now. But as I mentioned, I'm pretty sure Overwatch has 20% of the player base it used to have. So Blizzard is now actually going through and actually working on stuff that other game companies do because they've actually been afforded a position where they haven't needed to do it in the past, where they haven't had to actually sell out to Kellogg or whatever. But I mean, Fortnite added the NFL skins, and we discussed this yesterday when I was talking about the NFL skins, or not the NFL skins, Fortnite game development in general. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but people like that might step a little bit too close. You got to be careful, because when you sell out too hard, it steps a little close to real life, where like you have the official soup of the NFL. Like now you have the official game of the NFL, which is Fortnite, which I don't actually think that's what this is, but it's corny as fuck, and it actually represents like extreme levels of sellout. But that being said, the amount of crossover there already is between normal sports and esports, as far as people doing dances in real life in sports, like real life athletes doing dances on the field or something when they score a goal or a touchdown or make a basket or whatever, is pretty extreme. So it actually just like caters to like the actual athletes themselves, but on top of it, like it gets actually new blood into the community as far as Fortnite goes, because you're gonna have people that just otherwise see games. There's still people that see games as just like a kid's thing, like they see video games as just a kid's thing, and at a certain level it kind of is, because that's where it kind of started out. But like I don't think video games are going to spread. It's just going to eventually be something that's just part of like humanity. As I mentioned the other night, there's nothing else that has been a part of human history that cognitively and mentally stresses you as much as a video game does. Like there's been sports which will stress you physically and at a certain level of mental, there's mental games that play into it, but like chess is basically the only thing where it's kind of been like, as far as sports go, mental acuity or mental aptitude sports where you're actually testing your brain, there hasn't really been anything like that, which is kind of weird considering like your brain is a huge part of who you are. About the closest thing to that is education. I mentioned this. I probably didn't explain it very well when I was talking with my brother, but like he like jokes about like the whole idea of video games. But like if you compare it to something where you're actually testing your mental prowess, like education or specifically academics, where you're talking about people that are getting doctorates or masters, that's basically where they actually work on problem solving and critical thinking. It's very important to what they're doing. And then, of course, a lot of their hierarchy is based off you being actually able to apply what you know to real life, and then, of course, asserting your position. It's a different ball game, but it's very similar to like what you're doing with video games. Only with video games, you're killing people, and finding new ways around the same problem. Which is why it's important also when I talk about video game development, why it's important to give people options and different ways of doing the same thing and different ways to approach the problem, so people can actually use their ability. People call it adapting, and I really, really hate the common terminology people use when they talk about video game development, and specifically about skill in video games, adapting. But it's not just adapting. There's a lot of different skills in video game. Like I talked to multiple times about not critical thinking, but rather risk analysis is extremely important in video games. Risk analysis, and it's important in a lot of other things in life. If you do anything relating to economics or trading, risk analysis is insanely important. And there's opportunity costs. There's a lot of other things that you can just apply to video games that people just have to do, like solving problems. Critical thinking, like I mentioned before. Problem solving is also important, but then also reaction time is also very important, and your ability to aim. I don't know, mental agility. We call that. I mean, it's not accuracy. Would be a little bit different because it relates to your muscles, specifically your muscles, and it's not a lot of movement. It's about accurate movement. But anyways, moving on. I forgot where that original tangent came from. Moving on. I forgot how that argument or that tangent spawned right there. Reunion. We're gonna do Ash first, and then we'll do Reunion. Actually, let's do Reunion first. I haven't seen this. I've watched the Ash introduction. I've not watched Reunion though.
Trouble!
Jesse McCree. Been a while. You promised you'd write.
Well, Ash. I've been kinda busy.
We're pretty busy ourselves, so it's awful convenient you showing up today.
Yeah. You never been one to shy away from a good tip.
Hey, we worked hard for this score. You best move on now.
All I want is that crate. Everything else is yours.
This crate? Huh. Bob. Well, well. Now you got my attention. What is it?
That's none of your business.
Well, as I see it, now it's very much our business.
Doesn't always have to be this way, Ash.
Apparently, it does.
Looks like Bob got himself some upgrades.
Smoke him out of there! Last chance, McCree! Toss out your weapon!
All right, Ash. Here it comes.
Oh, shit! What the... McCree?
Sorry about that, Bob. No hard feelings.
McCree? Hey! Untie me, McCree!
Say hi to the gang
Talking to
for
you.
me.
I will not be ignored! I'm gonna rebuild Bob, and I'm gonna have him rip off your other arm!
Hey there, cowboy.
Welcome back, partner.
How long have I been gone?
Far too long.
What happened?
Well, That's a story for another time. But I got a call. They're getting the band back together. They want me. But really, they need you.
Jesse, wait. What are you going to do?
I've got some business to attend to. Say hi to the monkey for me.
Old flame.
Scientist. Whatever.
Not the best video, but still pretty good. Yes, definitely another hero. As they mentioned, there's multiple new heroes. I would definitely believe that. Maybe Blizzard's actually picking up their game now where they're actually going to have more heroes now. Because one hero every fucking 6 months does not cut it. Where is that? Black woman hero. Yeah, this is definitely 100% another hero. It's a support character of some kind. Definitely a support character. Healer of some kind, maybe. Android. This is different from the normal. These are the... What are they called? I don't remember what they're called. The android people. In the game, they actually have a name for them, like Bob here. Corny as fuck, yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a Western. Westerns are generally pretty corny because they always follow the same... Very typical, very same... like they always play out the same way. It's just a straight up Western. I don't know what else you'd... I don't know why you wouldn't say it's corny. Also, interesting thing here is she almost has an identical face to Widowmaker, which is very, very kind of weird. Like, all of her facial features are identical except for her hair and some of her makeup. She's basically Widowmaker. Just straight up Widowmaker copy. I thought, also kind of weird, I thought that was Anna. I thought Anna was going to be here and heal the McCree. Saw the sniper with the mask on. I thought that was Anna. But yeah, this is the way it was supposed to play out. It's corny because, it's what you expected. It's what you expected. Basically, it's a standoff between the two Western stylized characters. What else would happen, right? I thought that was Anna right there, that guy. Yeah, anyways, the automatons or the androids, she must be like a more advanced version of one. Not exactly sure. She's an AI of some kind, so. Oh, I'll turn you on, baby. Boop. Not sure what the relationship is there between McCree. There's all sorts of people that theorycraft the shit out of this, so. Definitely a healer. Maybe a flying character. She might be a flying hero. Healer like Pharah. Because there actually, since Pharah, there isn't really any vertical characters in Overwatch. Pharah is really the only one that exists in the game. Mercy kind of does, but she doesn't fly. She floats. Falls, I guess. She hovers down. Not really a flying character. To that end, you could say Junkrat is a flying character too, because he can, jump with his mines. Westerns aren't corny, Blizzard is. No, Westerns are pretty fucking corny. They always do exactly what's happening here. Also, Old Flame. Fucking Blizzard. Blizzard always...
See, wait. What are you going to do?
Always on point with their animations, though. Their animation is always great.
Say hi to the gang for me.
Also, remember how earlier I was talking about how like PG kind of ruins things? This is a Western shoot-off with like no blood and people getting shot, but the only people that ever got shot were the androids, which apparently you can rip off Bob's head and it's not an atrocity. Also, not supposed to finish the shit and shoot because it's supposed to be PG, She isn't supposed to actually finish the OT at the end there. It's supposed to explode when she says shoot, and then you can imply that she's saying shit. Instead, they left it at shoot. But she actually finishes saying shoot. You're cute when you're sleeping. Oh, my. No. And then she woke up.
Sorry about that, Bob. No hard feelings.
McCree? Hey! Untie me, McCree!
Say hi to the gang for me.
Anyways, definitely some new sort of healer character. Catherine.
Hey there, cowboy.
Catherine or Kate is definitely... Did not expect her to look like that, though. Like the... Kind of a weird fusion between, like an android, like human characteristics, like these fingers, the hands look almost identical to human hands. But then the rest of the body, like, you got something that's voluptuous, but then at the same time, it's just, like, straight up like android. Which is actually probably pretty good. Like, this is kind of art style you see out of, like, Cyberpunk 2077, which is really cool if you guys watch the gameplay trailers, which I assume you watched the gameplay playthrough trailer. Like, it's like that. It's just something that's really kind of fucking weird and out there. But character design for Blizzard's always been a really big deal. Like, they do really fucking weird shit. Which is kind of weird why Catherine is kind of very, very much like McCree. But I guess there must be some sort of, there's a relationship there, so maybe it makes sense. But as I mentioned before, it's impossible to keep designing characters for, like, a MOBA. Or as anyone knows, it's in video game development, it's impossible to keep designing the wheel or the characters and have every single character be unique. So you're eventually going to have overlap between characters. And Catherine is just another gunslinger with more area control, I guess, compared to McCree. Although McCree's Q is area control, so very denial.
What happened?
Voice actor for her, not a huge fan. Or maybe it's the way they work the synth with her voice.
They want me.
Interesting character, definitely a healer of some kind.
They need you.
Or support.
Jesse, wait. What are you going to do?
So I assume she's support based on the fact she seems like she can fly and she's overly interested in the fact that he got hurt.
Jesse. Jesse, wait.
Might actually be a person that just, like, stored themselves in an android or something, too. That might have been a real person at one point. Interesting. Tons of theory crafting. Alright, let's watch the gameplay footage from Ash.
Funny. They say there's no honor among thieves, but that's not how things.
Like I said, 3 different levels. This is second level, third tier, or like third level is an actual CG cinematic game.
You can count on it.
Meet the Pyro.
Let's clean up.
I don't think anyone is ever gonna do a nearly as good introduction for characters as Valve did with TF2. There's just way too much heart and soul in those.
Back off. Burn it all down. Now that gets the blood pumping. There you are. I'm calling the shots.
Oh, McCree. Oh no. Yeah, the Pyro one was just that was a good end to those shorts. The Pyro was great. Still remember those. We've covered them a couple different times in my stream, just because it's a very good. When you make characters, it's very important to actually have personality to the character and actually design them from top down, where you actually have a profile. You can convey like feeling of the character, and TF2 did such a good job. The characters basically wrote those shorts themselves. Like, they didn't even need to do anything because they did such a good job of imbuing like character into the actual characters themselves. So very important. But I mean, these are still really good. It's just not as good as what TF2 did. There's something else I was thinking about. So kind of an interesting thing here is I've talked about this a couple different times. Like, one of the balancing aspects that Epic really does not use is they're slowly moving towards 100% accuracy on all their weapons, because that's basically what a lot of big streamers are talking about, is how guns are inaccurate, just bloom. But that's one of the balancing aspects you're actually supposed to use. But once you do that, you lose basically your ability to differentiate characters and like different ways they actually interact, because a spread on a weapon variance is a way you can actually balance a character, and you can play characters around. It's not like it's completely RNG, because you control where the spread is. You can influence the spread itself. But from what we're seeing here, if she's like McCree, she just has 100% accuracy when she's moving constantly with a higher, like a longer range weapon, so she's more like a Widowmaker, which then might just completely obsolete Widowmaker. I haven't played her on the PTR, but I'm guessing she just might just straight up fight Widowmaker for just being a sniper, where she doesn't, like, the downsides of McCree, which is generally his damage fall off, just aren't present. Let's see. Blizzcon developer update, we covered that. 1.3, I don't think 1.3 is on the PTR. Cover that in a second here. Fucking pointer. And you can just do this with your mind. I don't know. Yeah, I do this every time I play it on the PTR. Good. 20,000 upvotes for that little piece of information there. You also just take not a Sharpie, but a whiteboard marker and put a dot on your screen too. Good for them. Let's see. BlizzCon, didn't really watch BlizzCon, the Overwatch World Cup. Didn't care that much about it. I watched, I did watch part of that. I watched USA get defeated on the first game. When they were supposed to win the World Cup, and they're defeated by China in the first game. It's kind of weird where they have only single, I don't know why they do tournaments in single elimination, like, because then it just leaves opening, like sometimes things don't always play out and like teams aren't in the right mindset. Like, double elimination is really where you have to be, where you have a loser's bracket and a winner's bracket. I don't know why they do single eliminations ever. It doesn't make sense. Sometimes you have weird anomalies. And while you can't, you can have a long-term season where they play multiple games like normal sports, which doesn't really work in kind of the, what's a good word for it? Basically the setup they have for, like, they only have so many days and have to do so many tournaments, right? It doesn't really work in their layout. Like, it's still something you should heavily consider, because like, USA apparently a lot of people thought was going to win the Overwatch World Cup, and I watched them just lose just to China. It's like something wasn't quite right there, and they just lost because of it, and that was it. That was the end of it. Like, even in like Overwatch they had, or at Fortnite they had winners and losers bracket, as far as I remember. With the fall skirmishes before that. They did so many different formats with Overwatch, or with Fortnite. It's hard to keep up with that, though. All right, developer update. Let's watch Kaplan again, because Little loves Kaplan.
Welcome everyone to today's developer update. We had an amazing weekend at BlizzCon, and we wanted to catch everybody up to the cool stuff that we announced and showed at the show this weekend. So we showed the latest animated short, which is called Reunion, that focuses on one of everybody's favorite characters, McCree. So Reunion takes place at Route 66, and it's a really cool movie. I highly recommend you all watch it, but you'll see an interaction between McCree and his former gang, which is known as the Deadlock Gang. And one of the coolest characters in the Deadlock Gang is a lady named Ash, who is in fact the leader of that gang. and we get to learn
Current
a
leader.
lot about her in that movie and a lot about her personality. Now, the coolest thing about Ashe is she's coming to Overwatch as our 29th hero. So a little bit about her backstory. Her parents neglected her growing up, and they were very wealthy. And she lived sort of a privileged life, except she didn't really have anybody around her to support her. So naturally, she sort of went in a negative, bad direction. She has a very strong personality.
Parenting
and
101
very
with
bossy.
Kaplan.
So that eventually led her to found the Deadlock Gang. And she eventually attracted people such as McCree into that gang. But it's her gameplay
maybe she just
that
is
you're
leader.
going to find the most interesting and the most exciting. She is a damage character, so she'll fill the damage role.
Her personality is not damaged?
Focus is her weapon, which the weapon is called the Viper, and what that weapon is a semi-automatic rifle with 2 firing modes. You can use the primary fire and basically hip fire with her at reduced accuracy and reduced damage, or you can use the aim down sight feature and use the secondary fire, kind of like Widowmaker's zooming on her scope, and you'll be highly accurate and do a lot more damage at a slower fire rate. The gun feels fantastic. We put a lot of time and effort into it. It's called the Viper. We think it looks gorgeous. We think it sounds amazing. We think you'll love the way that this gun shoots, and it really is the most defining thing about Ashe.
Western in a nutshell is the lever action.
She also has a secondary gun called the Coach Gun, which is her primary ability that she can use. The Coach Gun is sort of the shotgun blast that she can use to disengage with other people. So if somebody comes into her space and she doesn't want them near, she can use the Coach Gun not only to do damage to them, but it knocks back the person that's coming into her space and also knocks Ashe back. The cool secondary effect of this is that Ashe can use the Coach Gun to elevate herself into all sorts of fun locations, or just go straight up in the air, take some shots, and then land back down on the ground. So we think the Coach Gun adds really fun versatility to Ashe. Now, her secondary ability is called Dynamite.
They're trying to replicate how
Sure enough,
people love
Ashe
jumping
takes
with
out
Widowmaker
a few
using
sticks
their
of dynamite, lights the
spiderweb
fuse,
thing.
and throws them in a direction. What this does when it lands somewhere is obviously it blows up and does a damage over time effect on anybody that it hits. The really fun part about Dynamite is if you don't want to wait for the fuse to go off, Ashe can actually shoot the dynamite mid-fuse and set it off whenever she wants. So really highly skilled players will throw the dynamite and detonate it with a perfectly aimed shot as it's in the air. Now, we know you're all wondering what Ashe's ultimate ability is, and we felt like if you haven't, please go watch Reunion. But one of the stars of Reunion is a character named Bob, a giant Omnic. So we decided to make Bob Ashe's ult. So when Ashe has her ultimate available to her, she calls her trusty sidekick Bob in. She says, "Bob, do something," just like she does in Reunion. And Bob comes out. He's a giant Omnic. He'll charge forward and knock the nearest enemy up into the air, allowing Ashe to shoot that enemy if she happens to be paying attention at the time. And then Bob will use his arm cannon and becomes sort of like a devastating turret for the most part. The enemy team can shoot Bob and can take him out, but he has a lot of hit points. And what's really fun is for characters on Ashe's team, they can treat Bob like a teammate for that time that he's out. Meaning if you have an Ana on your team with Ashe and Ashe unleashes Bob onto the battlefield, Ana can actually nano boost Bob, for example, which is a lot of fun. So we know you're going to come up with all sorts of cool and crazy combinations. I would highly recommend you not only go watch Reunion, but you also go watch Ashe's origin story, which we did some really beautiful 2.5D cinematic work on that, and we think you'll really enjoy it. So I encourage you to go do that. That's all we have for work on that. Ashe's origin story, which we did some really beautiful 2.5D cinematic work on that, and we think you'll really enjoy it. So I encourage you to go do that. That's all we have for today.
We missed that.
Enjoy Hero 29. Thank you so much, and have fun playing Ash.
Basically, Widowmaker's face. Origin story. There you go. Ah, one of these guys. I like these guys.
Everybody needs a family. Because it's not fair facing the world alone. I don't care how tough you think you are. They should always be there for support. No matter what.
You guys are pretty beat up.
In the best of times, they will arm you with the tools to succeed. And in the worst of times, they will understand when things don't really go the way
I know,
you
10
planned.
trolling Nick.
Now some people are lucky enough
Actually,
to
I don't.
be born into the
We talked about this earlier. I have no idea why people are just like freaking out about Diablo, the mobile Diablo announcement. I don't get it. Like they expect Blizzard just not to make mobile. It's like for some reason it actually hurt Diablo 3 or their.
Now some people are lucky enough to be born into the perfect family. Others, well, they go out and make one on their own. And once you've done that, anything is possible if everyone pulls their own weight. So, if you want to be part of my family, I do have one little rule. It's my way. Or, well, who am I kidding? It's my way.
Got a weird TF2 vibe. I was waiting for them to go into the TF2 soundtrack at the end there. Horns. Cool. So, origin story. But yeah, I don't know why people were freaking out about the Diablo announcement. Don't like it, just don't play it. It's not hurting Diablo fans. Anyways, that's pretty much it. We cover everything from Blizzard? I think we did. I believe the new Overwatch patch is not live, so we can't cover that. Yeah, 1.3 that Kaplan talked about is not currently live yet. Ash is a mercy buff. Damage boosted Ash one-shot headshots 200 HP heroes from range, and fires one-shots faster than Widow. Oh boy. Oh boy. Good. As I mentioned, there's kind of, it seems as though with the way people perceive esports and competitive games in general, they generally are like, they lust after just 100% accuracy of laser rifles, basically. They just want characters with laser rifles all the time. Even though that really ruins balancing because, well, you want to have different weapons that do different damage amounts, and it just turns into a stat stick at that point. Wouldn't be the case. The other aspects to weapons besides just the DPS on the gun. But anyways. Wrong window. Trying to hit this since Balloons came out a couple days ago. I guess whatever gets views. That's what you have to do nowadays to get viewership, guys. You have to do backflips and then drop and hit an RNG shot with your sniper rifle. Cool. My service here is terrible on Durburger. Ah. Thanks so much for adding my suggestion to the new LTM. Good. We're back holograms for people that are still in the game. Why would you understand why people black out their names? Also, just use paint and you can make squares. Privacy? I guess. I've never understood why people do this. Like, is something secret about their names that they don't want to be seen playing together? And their friends will know they played together at XYZ time? Reasons that's more interesting than the actual topic. 6.2.22.1 True stability. I saw that on Twitter. It didn't really change anything. So I mentioned tonight that I'm going to be playing Black Ops. I don't think I'm going to be doing that. I think tomorrow night is when I'm going to start playing Black Ops. Okay. Popkin solo cap a point. Oh, so people don't even use the left click, they just right click. Christine? Oh, Athena the announcer. Oh, that's who the android was we saw in the video. It's the announcer. Oh, I completely forgot about her. She actually has a name. The actual announcer chick actually has a name, and people talk about her on occasion. And I'm pretty sure that's her voice in the actual, like when you saw her pop out of the crate. That's actually the announcer from the game. Does Bob stand for Big Omnic Butler? Battery operated boyfriend. Oh, Big Omnic boyfriend. That's pretty close. And there it is. From a female. Assumed female. Yep. Let's see. Still PG. Beautiful Omnic booty. The final storm before 6.22, longest heal off in Scrim game. As I mentioned before, heal off should never, ever be a determining, like the way people win games ever. And in Fortnite, this should never be a thing. Like I said, if you're down to like the last circle, there should actually be like something like a stacking debuff. When the circle starts moving, there should be like attrition or something that starts stacking on you that you can't remove without going back to the circle. Heal off should never ever be part of Fortnite, and part of it's because of the amount of just shit on the screen. Because people can hide anywhere. The amount of structures and your inability to locate people. And you can still do heal offs, even with 10 damage per tick, you can still heal off. Actually, no, you can't. Medkit takes 10 seconds to pop. Only thing you can do is bandages after the first medkit. So you can still do one medkit. That's still, it shouldn't be a thing, because one medkit can still determine whether or not a game wins, whether or not you win the game. Fucking stupid. Like, that was like half the matches in the fall skirmish in the last tournament was just heal-offs. Hey, look, guys, you won $200,000 for doing exactly what this guy's doing. Congratulations. Actually, they didn't. It was Cloaksy and Ninja that won, or Ifu that won. But some of the games were actually people won by doing this. On top of it, like, there's multiple things they could do to attack this. Is debuff and also range to the actual circle will determine, like, they don't really do damage fall off at all in the game, and they really should start doing that, like in relationship to explosive weapons. But in this case, in this particular case, like, damage increase the further away from the circle you are. Make it so there's still room for finesse for people to actually step outside the circle, but not make it so it's something people can manipulate and do something stupid like this. Damage stacks, and essentially you get damage faster and faster. Yeah. Debuff. That's what we're talking about. It's been in other games. Stacking debuff or something where it's a logarithmic where you take more and more damage the longer you do something. It's been in multiple games. I definitely think a better mechanic instead of a debuff would just be making it so you take more damage the further away from the circle you are. And then make it only apply at the end when the circle's moving. Because the last couple circles are very unique compared to normal storm circles in that basically everyone is in endgame mode. And the game should be seen that way. Not actually sure. Still not sure why they changed it from 10 tick to 8 tick. Why they did that in the first place, because it was at 10 tick for a long time, and then they changed it to 8 tick. And the only thing I can come up with was they did it so they could allow people to make more plays in the storm at the end circle, so it's not just coming down to like this tiny little cylinder. But as I mentioned, a 3D sphere, turning the cylinder into a sphere at the end of the game, the circle into a sphere at the end of the game, with the moving circle, so people have to build up and build down to it, so they start coming together. Would be a big help in general of cleaning up the end game. Covered a lot of this yesterday in the Fortnite video, Fortnite podcast.